Hello there and welcome back to the Naifa Vintage channel. I am absolutely thrilled you've joined me today because we're not just decorating for the holidays. We are traveling back in time to rediscover the truly warm and nostalgic holiday charm that feels so often lost in modern Christmas clutter. Forget the mass-produced, the fleeting trends, and the sterile displays you see everywhere else. This is the ultimate tour, the one you've been searching for. Today, you are getting an exclusive, up-close look at my 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour, a space intentionally curated to wrap you in the comforting embrace of a bygone era. I'm making a bold statement right now. I believe the only way to genuinely capture the authentic, soul-stirring spirit of Christmas is to fully and unapologetically embrace true vintage charm, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. You see, this isn't about simply adding a few old-looking ornaments. This is about surrounding yourself with pieces that carry stories, pieces that hold the echoes of countless cherished Christmases past. It's about creating a living, breathing testament to warm and nostalgic holiday charm that feels both profoundly personal and universally comforting. If you've ever felt that modern Christmas decorating is missing that essential magic, that deep, unshakable sense of tradition, then you are exactly where you need to be. My promise to you is that this tour will not only inspire your own holiday decor, but will also give you a roadmap for achieving this specific kind of profound, soulful warmth. Don't just watch this tour, feel it. As we embark on this journey, I have one simple request. If this tour ignites that spark of holiday nostalgia in your heart, please take a moment to hit that like button. Share your favorite vintage memory in the comments below, and of course, subscribe to Naifa Vintage so you never miss another deep dive into the beauty of vintage living. This 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour is more than just a setup. It's an emotional experience, and it starts right now. Prepare to be enchanted by the warm and nostalgic holiday charm that only genuine vintage can deliver, and trust me, you won't want to leave until the final ornament is revealed. This isn't just decoration. It's a meticulously crafted mood, an atmosphere you can almost taste, a visual symphony of warm and nostalgic holiday charm. My challenge and my triumph has been to achieve a 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour that feels cohesive, intentional, and utterly timeless, without ever veering into the territory of a dusty museum. We are aiming for lived-in elegance, the kind of space where you can imagine generations gathering around a crackling fire, the air thick with the scent of pine and cinnamon. The secret lies in layering, combining true antique pieces, which carry the weight of history, with mid-century and retro finds that inject a playful, comforting energy. Notice how the light catches the mercury glass ornaments, each one imperfectly perfect, reflecting the flickering glow of the classic bubble lights on the tree. These aren't just baubles, they are small, mirrored worlds, catching and amplifying the warm and nostalgic holiday charm. Every single object in this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour has been hand-selected, not for its price tag, but for its soul. The vintage felt stockings, the worn-out children's Christmas books, the ceramic Santa figurines with their faded paint-every. One of these pieces tells a whispered story of holidays long past, tales of simple joys and deep traditions. This space proves that you don't need a massive budget or sprawling modern rooms to achieve an effect that is absolutely breathtaking. In fact, a smaller, cozier living room only enhances the feeling of intimacy and warmth, making the vintage charm all the more potent. It forces a certain kind of careful curation, where every piece matters and contributes to the overall feeling of warm and nostalgic holiday charm. I want you to look closely and observe the textures, the soft, well-loved patina of the antique wood, the slightly faded velvet ribbons, the nubby feel of the vintage tweed upholstery. It is this tactile and visual richness that separates a genuine 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour from a mere imitation. This is a living testament to the fact that authentic Christmas magic is found in the echoes of the past. Now, let's get into the specifics of how this incredible warm and nostalgic holiday charm is actually achieved. I know many of you struggle with where to start when tackling a 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour because you worry about it looking too cluttered or too kitschy. That's a valid concern, but I'm here to show you the formula for irresistible, authentic, and soulful vintage decor. The key principle is intentional juxtaposition. We deliberately place items from different vintage decades. A Victorian lace runner next to a set of 1950s atomic starburst glassware create tension and visual interest, which keeps the room feeling vibrant and alive, not static. Focus on the foundational elements first, the lighting and the textiles. For lighting, we completely reject the harsh, cold white lights of modernity. Instead, we use warm, incandescent bulbs exclusively, leaning heavily on the soft, diffused light from vintage lamps, supplemented by the aforementioned bubble lights and, of course, candles always safely contained in vintage glass votives. This warm glow is the single most important element in achieving the warm and nostalgic holiday charm. Secondly, the textiles. Think vintage plaid throws, crocheted doilies, and heavy velvet curtains. These layers of fabric add a depth of color and texture that makes the room feel instantly cozy and inviting. But here's the crucial step in this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour. You must create vintage vignettes. A vignette is a small, carefully arranged scene that tells a mini story. For example, atop the vintage console, you might find a stack of worn Christmas records, a ceramic reindeer figurine from the 1960s, and a tiny, snow-dusted bottle brush tree. Each vignette must adhere to the rule of odd numbers. 3 or 5 items work best, and must feature varying heights to draw the eye. This strategic placement is what transforms a collection of old things into a cohesive, enchanting 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour that breathes with warm and nostalgic holiday charm. It's the difference between a collection and a curation, and that difference is everything. The Christmas tree is always the undisputed star of any 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour, but a vintage tree requires a completely different approach than a modern one. This is not about perfectly spaced ornaments or color-coordinated balls. This is about history hanging from the branches. Our tree is the epitome of warm and nostalgic holiday charm. It must be overwhelmingly decked with a riot of true vintage ornaments. Shiny bright globes with their signature faded stripes, delicate German glass from the 1940s that looks impossibly fragile, and the fun, slightly goofy plastic figures from the 1960s. The tree itself must also look the part. I prefer a slightly sparser, more old-fashioned cute nod to the way trees looked before they were perfectly groomed for the mass market. The lighting, as mentioned before, is key. A mix of classic C9 bulbs, which give a deep, rich glow, and the mesmerizing movement of bubble lights. The garland is another crucial element in this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour. I use the simple, unsophisticated look of classic tinsel. Yes, the kind you have to meticulously hang strand by strand, which is a huge marker of warm and nostalgic holiday charm and catches the tree lights beautifully. I also incorporate vintage wooden bead garlands and popcorn strands, adding a textural, handmade feel. The ornaments are hung closely together, often overlapping, creating a dense, abundant, and slightly chaotic feel, a visual narrative of a life lived and holidays celebrated with abandon. You should be able to spend an hour just looking at the tree, discovering new little vintage treasures tucked away in the pine needles. Every single ornament, from the smallest hand-painted bell to the classic angel on top, contributes to the unparalleled warm and nostalgic holiday charm we've so painstakingly cultivated in this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour. The tree isn't just decorated, it's a family archive, suspended in time. Moving beyond the tree, let's explore how we bring the warm and nostalgic holiday charm to the smaller but equally important areas of this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour, namely the mantle and the various side tables. These spots are critical for ensuring the vintage feel is integrated throughout the room, not just concentrated in one area. The mantle is the stage for a spectacular vintage display. Here, we embrace symmetry with a slight, charming imperfection. We feature a collection of vintage ceramic Christmas houses and churches, often called putz houses, clustered together as a tiny, snow-dusted village. The key is to use miniature bottle brush trees scattered among them to add texture and color. Above the mantle, a simple, true vintage wreath, perhaps made of flocked greenery or even one of those mid-century metallic wreaths, anchors the whole scene. Crucially, the stockings must be vintage or have a genuine vintage lunetted, velvet, or feltan. They should look like they have been used and loved many times over. The side tables and coffee table are perfect spots for those high-impact, small-scale vignettes we talked about. Think about an antique wooden bowl filled with a handful of tarnished, hand-painted vintage ornaments, maybe alongside a copy of A Christmas Carol with a worn cover. Another table might feature a 1940s-era tin toy or a vintage lantern with a warm, battery-operated candle inside. These small, deliberate touches are what elevate the 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour from merely decorated to deeply evocative. They provide little moments of discovery, inviting the viewer or guest to pause and reflect on the warm and nostalgic holiday charm encapsulated in each tiny scene. The use of vintage linens, from simple doilies to embroidered runners, under these displays instantly adds a layer of refinement and history. Every flat surface becomes a canvas for celebrating the enduring, cozy spirit of a vintage Christmas. One of the most overlooked, yet profoundly impactful, elements in creating this authentic 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour, and its incredible warm and nostalgic holiday charm, is the use of textiles. This is where we truly lean into the idea of perfect imperfections. Modern, flawless fabrics lack the soul and character that is inherent in vintage linens and upholstery. In this living room, every throw, every cushion, and every bit of upholstery carries a story, visible in its gentle wear, its slight fading, or a beautifully darned mend. For the Christmas season, I intentionally seek out vintage plaids, especially those in classic red, green, and cream combinations, but also look for unexpected, muted tones that were popular in the 1930s and 40s. A heavy, wool-blend vintage blanket draped over the back of the sofa, even one that's slightly threadbare in spots, contributes infinitely more to the feeling of warm and nostalgic holiday charm than a brand-new, perfect velvet throw ever could. Consider the power of a vintage needlepoint pillow. These pieces, often handmade, introduce a textural complexity and an immediate sense of homey comfort. We also utilize vintage lace and crochet sparingly, often on side tables or as small accents, adding a delicate, feminine touch that speaks to the craftsmanship of yesteryear. The slightly yellowed tint of old lace or the visible stitch patterns on a hand-knitted stocking are not flaws. They are badges of authenticity. They are proof that these items have been cherished through many Christmases, becoming part of a continuous narrative. This careful selection and placement of antique and vintage textiles is a cornerstone of the 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour. It's the soft, tangible layer that invites you to settle in, reminding you that warm and nostalgic holiday charm is as much about comfort as it is about aesthetics. As we continue through the details of this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour, we must dedicate a moment to the absolutely critical element of lighting. Without the correct illumination, the warm and nostalgic holiday charm completely falls apart. The lighting in a truly vintage setting must be low, warm, and highly diffused, creating a golden, amber glow that simply cannot be replicated by modern LED lighting. The most important lesson here is to banish anything with a blue or cold white tint. We rely on classic incandescent bulbs, particularly the larger, classic C9 and C7 size bulbs for the main tree strands, as their deep color saturation gives a richer, more profound light than smaller contemporary bulbs. Then, of course, there are the vintage novelty lights that are the very definition of warm and nostalgic holiday charm, the bubble lights. These wonderful, simple creations, with their mesmerizing, bubbling liquid tubes, cast a gentle, rhythmic light that is unmatched. They are instantly recognizable markers of an old-fashioned Christmas and are indispensable for any 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour. Beyond the tree, we use a few key vintage lamps, perhaps one with a stained glass or fringed shade fitted with low wattage bulb to create pools of warmth in the corners of the small room. The goal is to eliminate harsh shadows and create an environment that feels perpetually twilight. We also must mention the crucial role of candlelight, always used safely. Vintage glass hurricane lamps or simple, colored glass votives are perfect for holding small, flickering candles, adding a lively, dancing light to the room. This masterful manipulation of light is what truly brings the history to life, wrapping every vintage object, from the smallest figurine to the largest piece of furniture, in a captivating, golden veil of warm and nostalgic holiday charm. It is the very essence of the vintage Christmas aesthetic. A successful 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour is not just about what you see. It is a full sensory experience designed to fully immerse you in warm and nostalgic holiday charm. The visual tour is enhanced exponentially by the subtle, yet powerful, inclusion of sound and scent. For the auditory component, we steer clear of modern holiday pop music. Instead, the soundtrack of a truly vintage Christmas is one played on an authentic vintage record player or a radio tuned to classic broadcasts. We are talking about the smooth, velvety voices of Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, and Nat King Cole's warm and nostalgic holiday charm of classic holiday jazz and traditional carols. The crackle of the needle dropping on a vintage vinyl record is, in itself, a sound that instantly transports you back in time and adds an intangible layer of authenticity to the space. It's the sound of tradition, the rhythm of a slower, more intentional holiday. The scent is equally vital. We avoid commercial room sprays or artificial smells. The authentic aroma of this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour must be organic and natural. It's the scent of real pine or cedar boughs mixed with the subtle, sweet aroma of baking spice cinnamon sticks simmering gently on the stove, dried orange slices adorning the mantel, and the hint of beeswax from candles. Perhaps a few simple, homemade pomanders oranges studded with cloves rest in a vintage bowl. This combination of classic, timeless holiday music and the natural, inviting sense of the season creates a rich, enveloping sensory cocoon. It is this multisensory approach that ensures the warm and nostalgic holiday charm is felt on a deeper, more emotional level, making this home tour a genuinely unforgettable and truly immersive experience. One of my favorite techniques for adding an unparalleled layer of authenticity and warm and nostalgic holiday charm to any 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour is the strategic use of vintage holiday ephemera and signage. These are the small, often paper-based, details that truly nail the feeling of a specific bygone era. Think about the charm of an original, slightly yellowed vintage Christmas card from the 1930s or 40s, propped up on a small easel, its graphic style a perfect snapshot of its time. We're talking about vintage sheet music for a classic carol, perhaps framed simply, or just lying open on a piano or console table, its pages brittle with age. These aren't decorations in the traditional sense, but cultural artifacts that directly connect the room to a specific, historical sense of warm and nostalgic holiday charm. Look for vintage Christmas seals or postage stamps, which can be beautifully framed in a tiny, tarnished silver frame. Another fantastic element is vintage-style typography and signage. This could be a small, wooden sign with hand-painted lettering, or perhaps a reproduction of a classic Coca-Cola Santa advertisement. The key is to select pieces that have a genuinely aged patina. If it looks too clean or too bright, it immediately disrupts the 100% vintage theme. Even a stack of vintage Christmas storybooks, with their classic, illustrated covers and well-loved pages, can serve as a powerful decorative element in this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour. These details provide conversational points and draw the viewer in for closer inspection. By incorporating these small, meaningful pieces of paper history, we elevate the 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour from a collection of objects to a curated walk through the holiday memories of the past, solidifying the profound, warm, and nostalgic holiday charm of the space. As we near the conclusion of this deep dive into the 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour, it's crucial to discuss the mindset and small maintenance aspects necessary to preserve this intense, warm, and nostalgic holiday charm throughout the season. Vintage decor is an ongoing conversation, not a static display. The first part of the mindset is acceptance, accepting the slight fraying, the minor chips, and the lovely patina that comes with age. These are the very things that give these objects their soul and contribute to the authentic warm and nostalgic holiday charm. Do not try to make vintage items look new. Celebrate their history. The practical aspect involves simple, consistent care. Because we use many older electrical items like the bubble lights and vintage strings, it's essential to check them frequently and never leave them unattended. We also need to keep the space feeling clean and cozy, not dusty and cluttered. Regular, gentle dusting of the vignettes and the mantle displays helps keep the focus on the beauty of the objects, not their age. Furthermore, embrace the idea of rotation. If you have a large collection of vintage items, don't feel compelled to display everything at once. This allows you to refresh the look periodically, maybe swapping out one set of vintage figures for another halfway through the season. This subtle shift keeps the 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour feeling dynamic and prevents you from becoming visually fatigued. This vintage mindset is what allows the warm and nostalgic holiday charm to truly endure, turning your living room into a cozy, comforting sanctuary that feels completely timeless and wonderfully connected to the enduring spirit of Christmas past. We have now journeyed through every lovingly curated corner of this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour, experiencing the profound, soul-stirring warm and nostalgic holiday charm that is the hallmark of the Naifa Vintage aesthetic. I hope this tour has done more than just provide decorating ideas. I hope it has reminded you that the true magic of Christmas lies not in perfect, modern displays, but in the rich, imperfect tapestry of history and memory. I am confident that this 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour stands as a bold, inspiring declaration that true holiday elegance is found in the echoes of the past, not the frenzy of the new. The unique strength of the Naifa Vintage channel is our unyielding commitment to 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour authenticity, and our ability to translate the abstract feeling of nostalgia into tangible, actionable decor strategies. We don't just show you vintage items, we show you how to live with them, how to let them enrich your modern life. If you have been enchanted by the bubble lights, moved by the mercury glass, and have found yourself longing for this level of warm and nostalgic holiday charm in your own home, then I know my mission here has been a success. Now, I extend one final, heartfelt invitation. Don't let the inspiration end here. Please, give this video a like to show your appreciation for the enduring beauty of vintage. Share your favorite part of the tour in the comments below. Did the textiles get you? Or was it the classic lighting? And most importantly, subscribe to the Naifa Vintage family. Join our community of fellow vintage enthusiasts as we continue to explore the timeless elegance and warm and nostalgic holiday charm of a life lived beautifully in the past. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredibly 100% vintage living room Christmas home tour journey. Until next time, may your holidays be filled with the warmest of nostalgic charm.